You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Veale.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. In this series, we are having these one-on-one interviews and conversations with the Vetted VA professionals that make up the service side of Vetted VA. These individuals are the ones you can find on the website, vettedva.com, but you'll also see them in our Facebook group. You'll see them on our Twitter accounts, not Twitter, I didn't mean that, X accounts, which we're launching. You'll see them on TikTok. You'll see them on Instagram. They're all over the place because they are desiring to serve a community who are seeking to use their earned VA entitlements the right way, in a way that actually benefits the best. And so with me today is Loan Officer Extraordinaire Gay Veale from Colorado. Welcome, Gay. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Nathan.
Yeah. Well, you have been with us for 4 years, a little over. And in that time, we met at an association conference. You came up and you were talking about what you were doing and heard about us and something. And it has been a pleasure having you involved with us since the get-go. But I don't want to tell your story. I'd love it if you would introduce yourself and kind of how you got into lending and mortgage, where you come from. Give me all the good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again so much. So my name is Gay Veale. I'm a loan officer with a very small brokerage called Epic Lending, and I'm based out of Colorado Springs. But how I came into this industry is definitely interesting. So I'm a 30-year Air Force veteran, so served from 1988 to 2018. Retired out of Alaska, but my husband was still active duty, so he got an assignment to Colorado. So that's what brought us to Colorado. Of course, when I first got here, started looking for a job, and I originally was working for a defense contractor with the Missile Defense Agency, and the mission was really incredible there. It was super noble mission. I mean, protect and defend, from, ballistic missile strikes, the United States and our allies, right? Like super, super, super amazing mission. But I really just did not like the job that I had, and I wasn't very pleased with the way that the contract was being run. And, I had really incredible people that I worked for toward the end of my career. I was the senior enlisted advisor for a 3-star general. And so those people don't get to that level unless they're phenomenal leaders. And so I had this very, very high bar. And again, it's not that these people were bad that I was working with. It just wasn't very fulfilling to me. I'll just put it that way. Right. And the mission, even though it was incredible, was very far away from me. Like I couldn't see it day to day. Like the impact that I was having on that mission. And I'm a type of person that has to see and feel the impact that I'm having, right? And so a girlfriend of mine, who's a military spouse that I've known for a very long time, was a loan officer. And she said, you should come and be a loan officer. And at first I was like, gross. No, like sales, 100% commission, absolutely not. It was scary. It was like the thought of sales, like I thought it was just going to sale. It was just no. But about 6 or 7 months later, as I continued to grow more and more frustrated with the job that I had, I thought more and more about being a loan officer. I saw how happy she was. She would tell me these really cool stories of the veterans that she got to help. And so finally, I just kind of took this leap of faith and said, you know what, I'm going to be okay. Even if I don't close loans, I'll be fine. And so I got my license. And unbeknownst to me, we're in the middle of a refi boom. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even really know how to spell mortgage when I first got in. And so, I made the announcement, hey, I'm doing this, and people just started coming out of the woodwork. And most of them were veterans because that's who my group of people are. After 30 years, that's who your friends are, right? That's who your social circle is. And so, so I started, helping people out with refi, saving tons of money, which was fantastic. I loved it. I'm like, this is amazing. But what I realized right away, well, 2 things. One, the mortgage industry is very overwhelming. There's a lot to know. And the training that you take to get licensed doesn't teach you how to do loans. It teaches you how to actually, it just teaches you how to stay out of trouble, teaches you all the regulations, right? All
Right.
of the compliance and regulations. And so that was one thing. So I felt a bit overwhelmed. And then the second thing I realized was that very quickly is that veterans are highly targeted in this industry and very easily taken advantage of. And that made me mad.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I couldn't, maybe before when I was in the military, I had this really great platform because of the level that I worked at. But now I'm like this little tiny loan officer in this little tiny brokerage, in this big world of mortgages and other mortgage companies and lenders and things like that. And I needed a voice. I needed to figure out how to give, and not me per se the voice, but veterans a voice. And that's when I found Vetted VA. And I came to Vetted VA and I said, hey, again, I'd only been in the industry about 6 months or so, 7 months at the time. And I said, basically, will you have me? And I was really worried that the answer was going to be no. Hey, like, go learn a little bit about mortgages and come back.
Right.
I really was. I really, really was. And but you guys didn't do that. You guys welcomed me with open arms, and you said you're exactly the type of person that we need in this industry and in this group. And so I came in, and you guys, the training was phenomenal, and that's it. Like I really like if I never got another conventional or FHA loan, non-QM loan, I would not complain about that. Like, like I wouldn't
Right.
complain. Like I love serving veterans. I love, even if it's just teaching them. I'll give you just a really quick example of
Mm-hmm.
how much I love doing this. Somebody actually reached out to me through Vetted VA because they saw that I was licensed in the state that they're under contract in. They're already under
Mm-hmm.
contract. They're with the new build. They're with the builder's preferred lender. And they sent me their loan estimate to review, and we chatted for a little while. And they're like, we don't feel comfortable. And so after I reviewed everything, I just said, hey, here's the thing. Um, it's probably not an ideal situation. Like the loan officer is probably not taking great care of you, and it probably doesn't feel like you're in great hands. But you are getting probably the best deal you're going to get. And you can always come to me. So we've stayed in touch. She's been
Mm-hmm.
texting me. I've been reviewing documents for her just to give her advice on, types of things to ask for, types of things to look out for, things to look out for on her loan estimate. And I don't get anything out of that. And I don't care. What I get out of that is a veteran is being cared for, and she's getting the absolute best deal she can on the home that she's purchasing. And that's all that matters. So
Yeah.
that's what I love doing, and there's more to it. Like there's so many more things I'm involved with now, but that's we don't have all day, so I'll leave it at
Well,
that.
you are involved in a lot, and I actually think it's important to say because you are mission focused, and that's one thing. Like I didn't quite when you shared that early on in meeting you and getting to understand who you were and what drives you. Like I said, yeah, that sounds like what everybody is, but you live that. You live a mission result oriented life. Like if you don't see that there's an actual impact happening in your work, then it's kind of like why am I here? And I
Right.
love that about you because it's one of the things that you've even challenged me with, like, hey, y'all said you were going to do this and we're not doing it yet. Why? I was like, yeah,
Or
good point. I'm sorry I got sidetracked. Like, let me get back back in. Yes, ma'am. I'll get there. But because of that mindset, I mean, you've broadened your horizons to other organizations as well. And what else
yeah.
you're leading in other positions politically and structurally. Like, you feel free to tell us about that. What does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So, well, thanks for asking. I appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about those things. So, um, a few years ago, I was approached by the Broker Action Coalition, which was a new organization that was being stood up to help advocate for brokers and mortgage brokers, that is. And I'll just qualify that because a lot of times when you say the word broker in the real estate industry, people think about
Yeah.
real estate brokers, right? So no, I mean mortgage brokers, which is different, right? So you got all different types of lenders out there in the world, and mortgage brokers are a different type of lender than say a bank or a credit union or a whole a retail lender, that you might see advertisements for on TV. So anyway, and brokers are pretty underrepresented on Capitol Hill and even at the local and state level. And
Mhm.
so there was a group that was stood up to help advocate for brokers. But really, what I almost immediately realized is that they also, more importantly, advocate for the consumer. Almost every single thing that we advocate for is consumer focused. And which, and sometimes to the detriment of the broker because it's the right thing to do. And which I love about that organization. And so they approached me and asked me to be the leader of their veteran home ownership committee, which I was really shocked by because I'd only been a broker for about uh, gosh, like 2 years at that point. And so, but they teamed me up with a really experienced broker, but who wasn't a veteran. So between the two of us, we made a great team. We were like
Mhm.
co-chairs. The face of that team has changed a bit since then, but I'm still, the lead. But we do things like advocate on Capitol Hill and in the local community. And at the state level for things like veteran property tax exemptions. So I'll give you an example of one of the things, that we've helped get passed. So there are some states that allow 100% property tax exemption or a portion of a property tax exemption for 100% permanent and total disabled veterans. But that doesn't go into effect that exemption doesn't go into effect until you get until you're closed on the home and then you apply for
Mhm.
the exemption. So we said, hey, and so that means that now I have to count that property tax towards your debt to income ratio, which qualifies you for less home. And so we said, hey, what if we could get this in advance? This veteran is never going to pay this. This is silly. So we got legislation passed where in a few states now where we can exclude from the very beginning the property taxes from the veterans debt to income ratio. Huge, huge, huge win. And organizations like the Broker Action Coalition help get those passed, even at the state level. And then the other organization that I'm in is an organization called Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals. It's kind of a combination between Broker Action Coalition and Vetted VA.
Mhm.
It's kind of like those two things combined. We talk about financial literacy and again, the VA home loan, veteran advocacy. And my role in that organization is at the chapter level in Colorado Springs. I'm the legislative affairs or government affairs, I think is what they call it for at the chapter level. But the government affairs director for our chapter, in which I get to do a lot of similar things that I do in the Broker Action Coalition, but they're a lot of times just slightly different focuses. So, I really enjoy it. I have had the opportunity to meet directly with the director of the VA Loan Guarantee Program and his deputy, and I've had the opportunity to say something that I thought was a concern, and it result in immediate change from the
Hmm.
VA. And so I just love being able to have that impact for veterans when I see that there's something that needs to be fixed. So, and all of these platforms give me that opportunity to advocate. So love it.
That's true, and I think that's the fun part is that VVA is not designated like siloed off, and you can't be in here if you're part of, or you can't. We we actually like working with the Broker Action Coalition and other organizations
Right.
specifically. So let's talk
Yeah, it's
about
fantastic.
you train a lot. And I think you have a heart for teaching. You love to go out and kind of overcome myths. You just got back from a trip where
Yeah.
you were doing some education. Like, what is it about education? Where do you see what drives you to even travel out of state to go do this more often? And I know it's not
Excuse me.
just business development; it's from something else in your kind of an inherent inner driver for you. Where does that come from? What does it look like, and why do you do it?
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm really bad at the business development side of it. Like, I'll take these trips, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to go there and I'm going to meet with all these realtors. I'm going to meet with title companies and other lenders. I'm going to do all these things. And usually, what I end up doing is just scheduling a couple of. I usually only have a very few amount of meetings. But then I schedule a bunch of classes while I'm there. So
Hmm.
for me, I love to teach, and I love to teach anybody who's willing to listen, not just veterans. I mean, veterans are my number one priority, don't get me wrong, but there's much more to it when it comes to the VA loan space than just educating veterans. Agents need to be uh, educated.
Yeah.
Other loan officers need to be educated. Title companies need to be educated. I mean, the list goes on. Lenders need to be educated. Sometimes the VA themselves, need to be educated. And so, yeah, I mean, it happens, right? We're all human, and so yeah. So I just love to teach. I don't even know, like, I don't know how else to put it, but it's a complex, the VA loan is a complex loan. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's tons of mystery and myths, that it's
Hmm.
shrouded in. And sometimes I mean, just Google something about the VA loan and you'll get 6 or 7 different answers. And
Hmm.
so I think it's really, really important. And I love that Vetted VA helps with this. But I think it's really important to just show facts and data and dispel those myths and teach, it, we'll get rid of the myths with
Yep. Yep.
where barriers exist, which is typically with agents, with other loan officers and such, and then also teach veterans the right way to use their VA loan, how they can use it. So, like, for example, Alaska, which is where I just came back from, is a high cost area. So when you're talking about things like um, bonus entitlement, your bonus
Yes.
entitlement goes super far in Alaska. And so you
Yes.
could PCS up there and buy maybe a couple of homes while you're there. Buy a home, live in it, and then maybe halfway through your tour there, buy another home and live in it. And now you've got 2 investment properties by the time you leave, all 100% legal using your VA loan. And so these are just things that people don't know or understand, or there's a lot of
Yeah.
bad information about. So my
Yeah.
goal is to educate the world. I mean, seriously, if I could just go around and teach, that's what I would do.
Well, it sounds like you're getting close. I mean, you're doing it a lot,
I
and
love it.
you've been on lives on our TikTok. You've been on lives Tuesday nights, just bringing the education, the information. You've identified a couple things here that I think are really important, such as what the Broker Action Coalition was doing with support, trying to make sure that disabled veterans in states where their property taxes will be either diminished or even wiped out in some states, getting that done at time of closing so we don't have to offset their DTI with that.
Hmm.
You've identified just the bonus entitlement process, where that goes and how that can benefit.
Hmm.
So I'm curious how this gay Veale would talk to young gay Veale in the future, thinking, and I'm thinking of active duty service members that might be listening to this, or they're just getting out after 4 years. They did 4 or 3, whatever it is, and they're like, okay, I've served. I'm going to move on and do my things. How would you talk to that person, the younger you, the other you, and say, hey, you need to move faster. You need to move more efficiently here. Here's why. How would you
Yes.
teach yourself that?
Yeah, so man, let me tell you, I really wish I really wish it was mandatory training in the
Mm,
military. I'll just say that, as somebody who spent 30 years in the military, I never learned a single thing about my VA loan when I was in, not a single thing.
right. Okay.
And if I knew then what I know now, whew, it would be a whole different story, And I would just say, if you are young in your career, seek out a true expert. And I'll just say it's hard. People can say they're experts, and a lot of times they're not. So, really take some time and do some research, but seek out an expert in the VA loan, not just somebody who's trying to teach you how to house hack on some you know, YouTube channel or something. But seek out an expert and really understand how your VA loan works,
Hmm.
what, the difference between a departing residence and how to offset your mortgage payment in that regard versus a true investment property. There's so many intricacies And every time I can get in touch and have the opportunity to speak to someone who's really young in their career, or maybe just recently separated, who maybe didn't spend a lot of time but still has, a lot of life left,
Yep.
I really just try to drive it home that there is a way to utilize your VA loan to provide just remember, it's always for primary residences. So the VA's intent with the VA loan is to provide shelter for you. At the end of the day, that is it. It's not to build
Mhm.
an investment portfolio. It's not to flip houses. It's not to do any of that stuff, right? It's meant for you to have shelter. So you're always going to have to occupy the home in order to, procure a loan or a home using a VA loan. But there are ways to 100% legally um, use that loan to buy homes, have investments, maybe get some passive income, and then hold on to homes long enough to even get a little bit of profit out of them, which then leads to just long term generational wealth for you and your
Yeah,
family.
that's right.
Start young.
You said something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, start young.
Start young, start now. It's
Yes. Don't
yeah. When was the
delay.
best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago.
Right.
Next best time is today. So get on it. You said find an expert, not just somebody on YouTube, not just somebody talking head. So let's define terms. And I think that's really important in this position because, having been in the mortgage industry now, senior loan officer means squat. It's basically just a title on somebody's,
Branch manager.
business card. Yeah. It's like, what do you actually do that got you the title? It's very different. And I think that is one of the greater frustrating parts. If I'm going to put myself in a situation, anybody who's listened to more of these episodes understands I didn't serve, right? So my military service is only through learning from my dad, his service, and then my friends like yourself who explain these things to me. In the military, there's a rank structure. The rank structure does designate certain understandings, experiences, time of service, um, training, education that you might have gone through, specialty knowledge. In corporate America, sometimes titles are just titles, and they're just
Yeah.
titles that are fluffed up to justify a pay increase, or just like hey, we're trying to keep you here, so here's your senior vice president of bank structuring in a branch, and you're like, what does that mean? And like, I don't know, I just do this. So all that to say, Gay, help the audience understand when you say seek out an expert. What are some of the questions they can ask? What are some of the expectations they can look at, or experiences on a resume that you would say, yes, that person probably does understand more? How do they vet their people?
Well, with let me start instead of at the people level, let me start at the
Mhm.
company level. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me just say that just because veteran or USA or Navy or Marine or Coast Guard or whatever, right, is space is in the name of the company does not mean that that company has your best interests in mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just start there. Um, and then, because it's easy, it's very easy to do. Some of these companies will even pass themselves off as the VA, even though they may have a disclaimer at the top of their page or something that says we're not affiliated with the Department of Veterans Affairs. I can't tell you time and time again, I see people that say, oh, well, I called the VA about getting a VA loan. The VA does not lend. They don't. There are certain circumstances where they may service a loan, and there are very rare circumstances where they actually do the loan, but very, very rarely is that the case. And more than likely, if you think you're talking to the VA about getting a home loan, you're not. It's just a company that's trying to pass them off as that. And I would just say any company who's doing that, any person that you're working with at a company who's doing that is probably not a person you want to be dealing with either.
Fair
And
assessment. I would fully agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. And so when it comes to like actual individuals, when it comes to like individual loan officers, people that are going to originate your loan, if they're not taking the time, what I'll tell you one of the things for me, for example, I love to take, because education is such a key for me, I love to take the time, regardless if I'm going to do a loan for that person or not. So, for example, I had a gentleman reach out to me recently. He lives in Alaska, or actually, he's in Ohio, getting ready to move to Alaska. He works on the North Slope in Alaska, and so that's oil work. It's a lot of times it's seasonal, sometimes it can be full time. But he reached out
Yep.
to me, so he's got a brand new, variable income job. He's got, getting ready to move. He's got bruised credit. Like, there's multiple things. He doesn't have money saved for cash to close, things like that.
Okay.
But I still spent over an hour on the phone with him. It would have been very easy for me to go, oh man, call me back in a year, and not spend any time like, hey, you're not ready, really sorry, and just hang the phone up. But I
Right.
spent over an hour with him, giving him a roadmap on what he needs to be purchase ready. And I think that's one of the first assessments, right? Is somebody just trying to get you to the cell when you pick up the phone and you're talking to them, or are they taking their time and walking through your individual circumstance? But other questions you can ask is, how many VA loans have you done?
Okay.
Where, what's the most complex VA loan you've ever done? What's the most complex scenario you've ever, worked through? What's an example of an objection that you met, that with a buyer where you helped maybe get their VA loan offer, their VA offer accepted? Those types of things are a good indication. And then the last thing I'll say, and this is something that I always offer to do, again, whether or not I'm doing the loan, is
Hmm.
just review loan documents for you. Like, give me everything that you've gotten so far, and let me teach you how to read them so you can make your own assessment of what's best for you.
That's right. That is one of the key components to all of this. I think as Vet VA and as those who serve in it are seeking to do is it's, there's a lot of business out there. I mean, you may hear from others that there's not enough, but when you do the right thing, it tends to do return to you pretty quickly.
For sure.
But an analysis from an uninterested third party, a knowledgeable third party who's not going to receive a nickel or a dime from telling you one way or the other, is a bit more trustworthy, to just have that peace of mind of what do I not know here. And then sometimes, they go, hey, wow, that was great, thanks for doing that, I would like to work with you. But that's not the intent. The intent is service above self in
For
the
sure.
structure, to steal
Yeah.
from the rotary. They're looking at that process point.
That's the Air Force
When
too.
you What was that?
That's the Air Force as well.
Is
Service
it?
before self.
Oh, well, they stole it
Yeah.
from the air. I bet
One of our
Rotary
core
stole it from the Air
values.
Force then. Yeah. Okay. So when you said, like, how many VA loans have you possibly done? Is there now that you've been in the industry for 5 years, is there like a magic number where all of a sudden you felt like, oh, I've done so many loans, I now get it all, or I know how to do this? Like, is there a number there?
That's a really great question. And I would say no. And the reason I say that is because, for example, the first, gosh, almost 2 full years I was a loan officer, it was all refinances. All
Right. Yeah.
refinances. I wasn't doing, like, I did maybe one or two purchases. And a purchase loan is different than a refinance loan, and especially different than an interest rate reduction refinance loan, which is a streamlined VA loan, VA refinance loan, right? And so
Yes.
all of those loans are very, very different. For example, if you could do a construction loan, a VA one-time close construction loan, vastly different than even a traditional purchase. And so I think it depends on the type of loan that you're seeking out. But if they've only done 5 or 6 VA loans ever in their life, especially if they're a seasoned loan officer and they've only done a few
Yeah.
VA loans,
Yeah.
I would be like, I would try to find somebody else personally.
Yeah, or at least like get a designation on their team. Like, what does your team structure look like? How can you,
Hmm.
like, help me feel better about this one? I like that a lot. And it's true. Like, I grew up in Salem, Oregon. There was the National Guard there. There were no active bases nearby,
Hmm.
Portland to gosh, I think Klamath Falls had something at one point, but
Mhm.
that wasn't really that active. So you didn't run into that many VA loans. And when you
Sure.
did, you're like, oh, like go back to the guides, like help. I need help
Hmm.
on this one. So
Hmm.
having a resource structure is important. If you were to change one thing, and you mentioned this, you were hoping more education would happen earlier in the military service on the VA loan or even financial awareness.
Hmm. Hmm.
How would you structure that? Like, and I guess what I'm saying is, you got a soapbox. Somebody's going to listen to this or could share it. Veale is about to structure a new training platform that every recruit or everybody who's getting into basic has to go through. What does that look like? Where do you broad stroke that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I think any active duty person that's listening to this right now, that hears this is just cringing because they're like, ah, more training. There's a
Yes.
ton of training in the military, right? I mean, there really
Hmm.
is. I'll put it in Air Force terms because that's what I did. I don't think this is a basic training class. I think preparing yourself to become a war fighter, a lethal war fighter is the most important thing in basic training, and buying a home is not part of that. But I do think once you get to your first duty station and you're learning things about financial literacy, and so for example, in the Air Force, they have a course called FTAC, First Term Airman Center. It's like
Okay.
the brand new, right out of basic, right out of their technical training. And I don't think this belongs in technical training either. That's exactly what that's designed for. Is again, lethal warfighter is what your goal is there. But I think once you get to your first duty station, there should be some base level education on the process of the VA loan, because you're very quickly eligible to use. I mean, basically 90 days, you're eligible to use the VA loan as long as we're in a
Yeah.
wartime designation, which technically we are right now.
Yep.
So from a benefits perspective, not from a congressionally declared war. Let me just clarify that. But from a benefits perspective, we're considered wartime, so you're eligible for that VA loan. So I would maybe have some introductory level training, available to active duty service members. And then again, maybe when they're, getting ready to become a young NCO, that's usually when people start looking at starting families, and probably really truly considering their first time, maybe moving off base, moving out of the dormitories, and buying a home. Not that you can't do it before then, but just
Right.
saying. So I would build that education. And so I wouldn't want the first time that they're getting ready to go out into the world and buy a home to be the first time they've heard about their VA loan. I would want them to have some base level education. And then maybe that kind of second level education. And then maybe finally, before, a few years before you get to retirement age, because your the type of income you can use to qualify, and you know, potential disability ratings and all of that is not what you may think it would be. So you can't just like, oh, I still have a job in the military, and so I could just use my active duty income even though I'm getting out in 6 months. You can't. And so I think it's very important that we provide that level of training just before they get to that point where they would, be within that window. So maybe 5 years or so prior, 4 or 5 years prior to potential retirement age would also be a good time, to kind of give that follow up. Here's how to prepare as you're transitioning, because a lot of times when you retire, there's a move, right? And so certainly I think online training is a good option, but I would love to see this be in-person training. And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be death by PowerPoint. This is like real life stories. And it also doesn't have to be 4 or 5 hours. It can be like, boom, 30 minutes or an hour, and then you're in and out. Um, anyway, active duty
It's so
people,
true
don't
when
kill
you,
me.
yeah. Well, I mean, I would also say this one should be open for spouses and family too.
Oh,
It's like, hey,
yes.
they should get this, because what I hear in vetted VA and having been in there, like it's more spouse driven many times, especially during times of active PCSing, and the questions are coming because the service member is literally doing their job and having to report all the time, doesn't have time to hop in a Facebook group and ask a question. The spouse is the one kind of gathering everything together, putting it all under like, okay, we're getting ready to rock and roll. Let's go. And they're driving this. So they should be part of that training platform.
100%.
Yeah, which is great. So I'm just going to plug the fact that VVA does have free training on most of these topics for our veteran and active duty service community. So if you're hearing this, you're like, wait a minute, I want that. Just go to our Facebook group or email me at nathan@vetava.com and let me know. We'll get you logged in for it.
Absolutely.
But we need more. And I love this. So well, Gay, I really enjoy the convo. I enjoy the time you give me here. I know you've got a lot to do still on a regular basis, and I just want to be the first to publicly congratulate you on reaching what VVA has acknowledged as our rank of VVA 7, one of our top highest levels of leadership, kind of one of two right now that run and help organize and hold us accountable for what we're doing. So thank you for your continued service and leadership in our organization on top of the other things that you do on a regular basis.
Thank you so much. It's an incredible honor to serve in the ranks of Vetted VA, and I am just forever indebted to you guys and to the team here, and everything that I've learned, from just basic VA loan knowledge to having it's like having a library of people, available to me anytime that I have a scenario that I'm like, whoa, how do I handle this? This is new, unusual, unique. Boom, I pop into our chat groups and I'm like, hey team, this is what I got. And there's just a swarm of people that come around you and help you solve the problem. It's incredible. It's like anytime you're working with someone in Vetted VA, it's like having 100 loan officers on your team. It's incredible.
It is true.
And
Hundreds
agents.
of years of experience
Sorry.
between all of it.
Yes, and agents. I don't want to leave our agents out. Our agents are phenomenal in this group. They would probably outdo, I would say, 75% of the loan officers in the nation when it comes to the VA loan, if not more, maybe even 90%. They're incredibly knowledgeable, and you have all of that. We have all of that available to us, like right behind us. It's like, here I come with my, troop of people to help you get this loan. So
it is fun watching the agents we have that have gone through all the same training we put everybody through, right? So all the same coursework, it's all the same testing, the tenacity that they have. It doesn't, a lot of times they're like, why in the world am I doing this? It has nothing to do with my job on these contracts. And then they get to the end of it, they go, oh. Totally understand how this now affects all these contracts and addendums and all these other things we have to do in our state. But yes, we love saying like those agents can put most loan officers to shame when it comes to knowledge structure. And it's literally a lot less than actually like, oh, I know this because I've done it. It's more of like, oh, I know how to find that answer. Hold on, I'll get back to you in about 20 minutes with the right answer. And they can cite and source a guide faster than, if that long.
Yeah, they're incredible.
Get the RLC. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this and you want to get in touch with Gay Veale, she is licensed in many, many states. You can find her on our vetava.com site. Check under Colorado for her primary location. But you can also find her. All of her contact information will be in the show notes. You'll find her on TikTok. You'll find her on Facebook. You'll find her all over the place. You cannot forget her name. It's very memorable. She is just one of the kindest people. Will give you the time that she has all the time. And so, Gay, thank you again for being here. Thanks for being a part of the VVA community with your service. Thank you for doing what you do, both on the lobby forefront for veterans' rights and basically using the VA loan even more effectively in consumer rights. So appreciate
Thank you for having me, Nathan. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yeah. Well, thanks. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode, or you'll see us either way. Take care. Thank you for listening to the VVA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at VVA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the VVA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join VVA on Facebook or VVA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok. wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at vetedva.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vetedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.